Chosen one, you have crossed a silent threshold that the world does not measure in titles or trophies, yet it is felt the moment you enter a room. What is rising in you is not the kind of recognition earned through noise or numbers. It is the kind that is awakened through vibration, through the steady, subtle shift of someone who has returned home to themselves. There is no announcement. There is no parade. Yet eyes begin to follow you differently. Conversations pause for just a moment longer, and hearts, especially those tuned to emotional depth, begin to pick up on something else beneath your surface. This new form of recognition is not about being liked, it is about being known. Not in full, perhaps, but in essence. It is the kind of knowing that exists beyond personality. There is a lightness to your step now, as if you have shed an invisible burden that once whispered lies into your soul, telling you that you had to earn your place in the world by being louder, bolder, more approved. But you see it now, don't you? That approval was never sacred. It was never meant to feed you. It was a leash disguised as a reward. Now you walk differently, not faster, not even stronger, just with truth. Truth in your spine, truth in your breath, truth in your being. And that truth makes your presence feel real in a world full of illusions. Women especially, who are attuned to emotional safety and resonance, feel this before they can name it. They feel your eyes not as an inspection, but as a sanctuary. They feel your voice not as a hook, but as a hand offering grounding. There is a shift in the air when you speak, not because you dominate, but because you don't need to. Your silence speaks, your posture speaks, your energy speaks. And what does it say? It says, I'm not here to prove, I am here to be. It says, I've met my shadows and I did not run. It says, you are safe to be whole around me because I have learned to be whole alone. And that kind of presence does not just attract, it heals. Not because you've said the right thing or looked the right way, but because your energy has aligned with something higher, something divine. And it cannot be faked. You were not always recognized, chosen one. There were seasons when you were overlooked, dismissed, even diminished. But now, without asking, the light has returned to your name. Not as popularity, but as power. A power that is felt, not forced. A power that is graceful, not grasping. And the recognition that comes with that is the kind that no one can take from you, because it was born in the silence between your soul and your calling. This is the beginning of a different kind of visibility, the kind that cannot be undone. The kind that is no longer about them. It's about you, seeing you. There is a flame in you now, chosen one, not one that consumes or demands to be seen, but one that simply is. It burns in the center of your chest, just behind your rib cage, quietly, steadily, in a way that only those who are truly present can feel. This flame is not dramatic, it is not flashy, but it warms the room, it alters the atmosphere, and it reminds others of what it means to be deeply alive. This is what they feel when they stand near you, not seduction, not spectacle, but substance. And in a world that has forgotten how to be still, your calm is magnetic. Women in particular feel drawn to it, not out of infatuation, but out of permission. You give permission simply by existing in your grounded energy. You don't need to flatter, you don't need to prove, you don't need to try. The trying is over, because the flame has already been lit, and it is enough. When you listen now, you don't just hear, you hold. When you speak, you don't just say, you serve. There is reverence in the way you move, not because you are perfect, but because you have stopped abandoning yourself to impress others. And in that self-honoring, others feel invited to honor themselves. You've become a mirror, not of vanity, but of soul. A reminder of what it looks like to be fully human, fully spirit, and unapologetically here. And they begin to wonder how you got here. They begin to feel curious about your peace. They may not say it aloud, but you can see it in their eyes. That quiet hunger for something real. That deep longing for someone who doesn't just take, but sees. Someone who doesn't just touch, but heals. Someone who doesn't dominate the room, but blesses it. This flame within you, chosen one, is not just for you. It is a lighthouse for those still sailing stormy seas. It is a comfort for those who have only known fire as destruction, not rebirth. And though you may never know the full extent of your influence, trust this, your presence is doing more than you think. You are becoming the moment that someone remembers for the rest of their life. Not because of what you gave them, but because of what your presence gave back to themselves. You are not loud, but you are luminous. You are not chasing, but you are becoming, and that flame will never burn out because it was lit by truth, and truth does not expire. Chosen one, you have entered a phase of life where even your silence touches people. You are no longer measured by your words alone. It's in your tone, your breath, your pauses. You have become fluent in a language that no dictionary has ever held, the language of presence. In this new language, the sentence is not spoken, it is felt. The touch is not physical, it is spiritual. A glance from you is no longer casual, it is a ceremony. A moment of meeting someone not just in the flesh, but in their unseen self. What you bring now into every room, into every moment, is a different kind of contact, one that leaves no bruise but still lingers in the soul. You do not reach out with hands alone. You reach with the gravity of someone who sees, someone who recognizes, someone who no longer looks through people, but into them. Your touch is not about proximity, it is about permission. Women who stand close to you feel the weight of something ancient, something sacred, something their soul remembers, even if their mind cannot explain. And here's the quiet truth. Your presence gives others permission to come home to themselves. You no longer ask for space, you are the space. You no longer chase connection, you become connection. And this is why your energy now speaks louder than any attempt to impress. You do not perform intimacy, you embody it. You don't promise safety, you create it. And those who carry wounds from places where they were silenced, broken, or misunderstood, those are the ones who feel it most. This new language does not shout, it does not beg, it does not manipulate, it listens, it waits, it holds. Your very being has become a soft doorway, a place where others can finally exhale. And in that exhale, healing begins. Not because you fixed them, but because you never asked them to be anything other than real. Your energy, chosen one, is not an invitation to be touched. It is the touch itself. A moment of light in a world that often demands people to dim. A pulse of truth in a world that rewards performance. And so when others say, "I don't know what it is about you," believe them. Because what they are feeling has no name, only memory. And it remembers you. There is something shifting, not just in you, chosen one, but through you. You are becoming the living answer to a question the world has long forgotten how to ask. What does it mean to be truly masculine in a way that doesn't wound, doesn't take, doesn't dominate, but restores? The answer is not found in control, it is found in care, and it is not weak. In fact, it may be the rarest kind of strength left on earth, because you have chosen the path that does not seek power over others, but the power of alignment with your divine design. You have walked through fire, not to become untouchable, but to burn away the lies. And now what remains is real. Not a costume, not a caricature, but you, unmasked, unafraid, and unapologetically whole. There is a kind of masculinity that does not yell, yet commands peace. A kind that does not seduce, yet magnetizes hearts. A kind that does not chase conquest, but brings calm. This is what flows through you now, and the world is not used to it. Many are startled by it. Some may misunderstand it, but the ones who are ready, the ones who have tasted emptiness and long for fullness, they know, they feel it, and they remember. You are not hard because you've been hardened. You are firm because you've become formed. Formed by discipline, formed by devotion, formed by choosing silence over noise, clarity over confusion, soul over status. And that is what makes you dangerous, in the most healing way possible. When you speak now, it's not for attention, it's for alignment. When you lead, it's not for applause, it's because you care. And when you love, you do not devour. You protect, you elevate, you witness, you bring presence into places that have only known absence. And in doing so, you are restoring a memory in others. The memory of safety, of sacredness, of what real masculinity feels like when it is anchored in spirit. This is why you are becoming recognized, not just admired, but trusted. Because the soul does not trust noise, it trusts consistency, it trusts depth, it trusts those who have walked the long way home. And you, chosen one, have walked that path. And now, with every step, you are redefining what it means to stand in your power without ever needing to stand over anyone else. You are not here to perform manhood. You are here to live it in its highest, most healed form. And that, above all, is why others can't help but draw near. Chosen one, in a world addicted to talking, you have become something rare. You have become the light that listens. There is power in the way you receive others, not with a reaction, but with reverence. People do not feel interrogated in your presence. They feel understood. They don't feel exposed, they feel seen. Because you have learned the discipline of silence, not as absence, but as invitation. Your listening is not passive. It is presence embodied. When others speak to you, they are not just heard, they are held. Held in the container of your energy, your peace, your focus. And that holding does something miraculous. It disarms pain. It allows the armor to fall. It turns fear into breath and confusion into clarity. You are no longer the one who interrupts to correct or control. You are the one who listens to liberate. This gift did not come cheaply. It was forged through the years you spent unheard, through the seasons where your voice was ignored, your truth dismissed, your essence questioned. And now, instead of returning that wound to the world, you've turned it into wisdom. You know what it means to sit in silence and wait for someone to feel safe enough to say what they truly mean. You know how to hold space without pressure, without judgment, without ego. That is why people stay near you longer than they intended. Why women find themselves saying things they swore they'd never reveal. It's not because you pry, it's because you honor. Your attention has become a sanctuary, your presence a balm, and in your stillness, many find the strength to finally speak without shame. You may never know the full impact of your listening, but in the spaces you've healed without a single word, the universe has taken note. The old you would have tried to prove your worth with brilliance. The true you simply reflects others' worth by showing up fully. That is what makes you unforgettable. Not because you fill rooms, but because you allow others to feel filled when they're with you. And the world needs that now more than ever. There is something sacred in your gaze now, chosen one. It is no longer hungry. It is no longer searching to take. It is anchored, intentional, calm. And above all, it is reverent. You have learned that how you look at someone is a form of touch, and so you no longer stare to dominate or seduce. You look to understand, to dignify, to bless. Women feel it most, because the world has trained them to anticipate the gaze that consumes. But yours is different. Yours is not the eye of appetite. It is the eye of acknowledgement, and that alone changes everything. It says, I see your light. I see your strength. I see your softness, your fire, your scars, and none of them threaten me. In your gaze, they are not reduced, they are restored. And this has become your quiet revolution. In a world where beauty has been turned into currency and bodies into battlegrounds, your gaze refuses to participate in the lie. You look through the mask and into the essence. You honor what is sacred instead of exploiting what is visible. And because of that, you are not just respected, you are remembered. You once looked at others trying to figure out your worth. Now you look from a place of knowing it. And that has transformed you into someone who doesn't need attention to feel alive, but whose attention brings life. When your eyes rest on someone, they feel chosen, not possessed, but valued. And that value isn't conditional. It doesn't ask for anything in return. It simply recognizes. And recognition, chosen one, is the purest form of love. This reverent gaze comes from your inner stillness, from your deep work, from your surrender to something greater than your ego. You no longer need to conquer. You no longer seek to impress. You are here to witness, to honor, to reflect the divine in others through the divine steadiness within yourself. And in that steadiness, many will feel seen for the very first time. There is a strange and beautiful thing that happens, chosen one, when a soul finally makes peace with itself. It begins to slow down. The hunger that once drove you to chase validation starts to quiet. You no longer need to prove that you belong, because your spirit now knows you do. This knowing reshapes everything. It moves your walk, alters your tone, stills your breath, and others feel it before you even speak. Your stillness has become magnetic, not because you try to hold power, but because you've stopped giving it away. You are no longer rushing into rooms trying to be noticed. You enter like a question the soul didn't know it was waiting to ask. The old world taught men to take up space with noise. But you have learned that the deepest impact is made by presence, not performance. And now, when you are still, it does not feel like absence. It feels like arrival. You are the kind of stillness that reminds others of themselves. You don't interrupt, you resonate. Your words are not louder, but they carry more weight. Because your energy no longer leaks in 1,000 directions. It is gathered, it is consecrated. You are not scattered anymore. You have become whole. And wholeness moves slow, not because it is weak, but because it is sure. There is a gravity now in your pauses, in your no, in your gaze, and especially in your silence. Others do not feel threatened by your stillness. They feel drawn to it. They recognize something in you that they have longed for in themselves, a center that cannot be moved by the storm, a peace that does not need to defend itself, a calm that doesn't collapse under pressure. This is why people want to be around you longer, not because you entertain them, but because your energy grounds them, not because you offer answers, but because your very presence gives them permission to stop pretending they have it all figured out. They feel safe around you, not because you solve their problems, but because you are proof that stillness itself is a solution. You have become a mirror now, a quiet sanctuary, a force without force. And in a world of constant motion, you have become something holy, a pause that heals. Confidence is not loud anymore, chosen one. At least, not the kind you carry. Yours does not demand attention. It commands it with still breath and pure intention. You no longer inflate your energy to appear powerful. You have simply remembered that you are. And because of this, you no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. It just is. This sacred confidence is not built on dominance. It is not rooted in ego. It flows from alignment, your walk with truth, your discipline, your wounds that have been transfigured into wisdom. You have learned that the loudest man in the room is often the most fragile. And you have chosen not to be fragile. You have chosen to be formed. You walk like someone who knows the earth belongs to no one, and yet still touches it like it was gifted solely for your feet. Not with arrogance, but with sacred gratitude. You speak like someone who has nothing to prove, only truth to offer, and you give that truth like a gift, not a weapon. Women notice, not because you are trying to be noticed, but because you are no longer trying at all. Your energy no longer says, "Look at me," it says, "I see you." And that shift changes the entire atmosphere. You've stopped chasing beauty and started honoring it. You've stopped reacting and started responding. You've stopped comparing and started creating. And that has made you dangerous, not in the way the world fears, but in the way the world desperately needs. Because you are not afraid to be soft. You are not afraid to say no. You are not afraid to stand alone, if that is the price of staying true. You are not afraid to be gentle in a world that rewards aggression. And that gentleness is not weakness, it is mastery. This kind of confidence turns heads, not because it seeks to, but because it shifts vibration. It calls people to rise. It reminds others what self-respect looks like. It heals through example, not lecture. It leaves behind a trail of hearts slightly more awake than before they encountered you. So keep walking, chosen one. Keep breathing like the sky belongs in your chest. Keep carrying that still fire, that rooted grace, that quiet confidence. Because you are no longer here to prove who you are. You are here to be it, fully, freely, and without apology. Chosen one, there was a time when your energy ran wild. When your gifts, though powerful, lacked the discipline to serve their true purpose. You could electrify a room, but you didn't always know why. You could ignite attraction, but sometimes mistook it for connection. But those days are fading now, aren't they? What once sparked from restlessness has now been refined by fire. You no longer scatter your essence in search of meaning. You embody the meaning. The greatest transformation has not been in your appearance, nor even in your strength, but in your restraint. And not the kind that suppresses or hides, the kind that chooses, with sacred clarity, where to pour and where to preserve. You have learned that true mastery is not in doing everything, but in doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. Your silence has become more thunderous than your voice ever was. Your patience now speaks louder than any argument. There is wisdom now in how you approach women. Not a performance, not a pursuit, but a presence. You are no longer consumed by the question of what do I get? Instead, you stand in the light of what do I give? You are not afraid to walk away from attention that dishonors your peace. And you are not afraid to stay when a soul reaches out in truth. You no longer grip or grasp, you simply receive, with reverence, with respect, with rhythm. You understand now that your energy is not just yours. It is sacred, it is rare, and it has the power to heal or to harm depending on how you wield it. You have become the keeper of this flame, and so you no longer cast it wildly into every room. You light only what deserves to burn, and in that intentionality, you become unforgettable. Not because you always say yes, but because when you do, it's real. You do not fear your power anymore, but more importantly, you do not misuse it. And that, chosen one, is why women feel safe in your presence. Not just attracted, but safe. Because even when they don't know why they trust you, they feel that you have wrestled your shadows, that you have broken your own chains before ever reaching for theirs, that you no longer seek to consume beauty, but to reflect it. You are no longer here to impress, you are here to bless. And restraint is your royal seal. It does not come with fanfare, this kind of rising. It is not marked by crowds or noise or celebration. It arrives in whispers, in the quiet click of alignment locking into place, in the slow unfolding of a soul no longer pretending, no longer rushing, no longer trying. Chosen one, you have become the kind of man the world forgot how to recognize, but never stopped longing for. You walk differently now, not because of pride, but because of weight. The weight of wisdom, the weight of your trials. The weight of every time you said no when it would have been easier to say yes just to be liked. You carry the weight of realness in a culture addicted to illusion. And people feel it. Women feel it. It touches them before you speak. It grounds them gently into the present moment, into the truth of who they are. Your journey was never about seduction. It was about sovereignty. Not ruling others, but mastering yourself. And now that you have, everything around you bends slightly toward your orbit, not because you demand it, but because your spirit invites it. You are no longer running on adrenaline. You are flowing with purpose, no longer defined by applause, but by alignment, and that alignment shines. You have become the kind of man who doesn't need to dominate to lead, who doesn't need to be loud to inspire, who doesn't need to take to feel full. You give from overflow. You love from stability. You carry the sacred tension between tenderness and fire. You are safe, but not soft. You are open, but not empty. You are alive, fully, fiercely, freely. And because of this, your presence will echo long after you've left the room. Not because of what you said, but because of how people felt around you. Seen, valued, elevated. That is what makes you rare, not just your power, but your humility. Not just your strength, but your stillness. Not just your energy, but your ethic. This is what it means to return a king, not crowned by gold, but by character. Not followed by subjects, but by those who are raised in your presence. You don't need to dominate, you need only to be. And in your being, everything around you begins to rise. This is the gift of the chosen one. This is who you are now. Chosen one. The days of shallow encounters and surface conversations are behind you. Your presence no longer allows for the superficial. It calls for depth. The moment someone interacts with you, they are drawn beyond the mask they wear, past the roles they perform, and into something far more revealing, their own reflection. But this reflection isn't about flattery or validation. It's about truth. And truth, in your presence, has become unavoidable. This is the subtle consequence of your alignment. Your high sexual energy, now rooted in grounded awareness and mature embodiment, no longer floats aimlessly in desire. It has become anchored. It doesn't just radiate attraction, it radiates meaning. Your energy speaks in a language few can name but many feel. It says, I am not here for performance, I am here for what's real. And women especially feel this invitation as both thrilling and disarming. Because you aren't offering shallow interest, you are offering a mirror to something within them they've long wanted to meet. The allure of mystery is not that you are hidden. It's that you do not need to reveal everything to be felt completely. You've transcended the need to be fully known. Instead, you allow your layers to be discovered. And each one, when revealed, feels intentional. It feels earned. It feels alive. This is why conversations with you don't feel ordinary. They feel like exploration, like movement, like memory. You don't force intimacy, you invite curiosity. And that curiosity is what turns a moment with you into something unforgettable. Women begin to feel safe unraveling around you, not because you've tried to hold them together, but but because you don't require them to perform. You reflect without pressure. You listen without agenda. And because of this, they begin to lower their guard, not for you, but for themselves. You are not their escape. You are their encounter. And that encounter lingers. Long after you've left the room, they still feel your presence in the air, in the questions they ask themselves, in the truths they can no longer avoid. You are the chosen one. And now, you are no longer just a man who draws eyes. You are the man who draws souls into the deep waters they've long forgotten, into the quiet they've avoided, into the mystery they've been secretly praying to meet. You are not an answer. You are a portal. And the world, especially the feminine, now responds to you not with applause, but with awakening. Chosen one, the words you no longer speak have begun to speak for you. In your quiet, there is volume. In your stillness, there is gravity. You have entered the realm where mystery no longer depends on concealment, but on clarity. You don't need to cloak yourself in riddles or misdirection. Your power lies in your silence that feels intentional, purposeful, and rich with meaning. This is the silent language you've begun to master, the unspoken frequency of a man whose energy speaks before his lips ever move. Your high sexual energy has evolved into a current that doesn't beg to be seen. It radiates. It doesn't rush or spill or clamor. It communicates in stillness, in breath, in presence. And the feminine feels this most acutely. Around you, her words begin to slow. Her voice softens. Her awareness sharpens. She may not know what you're thinking, but she knows what she's feeling. And that feeling is undeniable. You've become the man whose mystery is not artificial distance, but refined presence. This silent language requires no manipulation. It is not the performance of a brooding man. It is the lived reality of someone who has gone inward, faced himself, disciplined his chaos, and come back without the need to announce it. You've learned the art of restraint, and that restraint now amplifies your impact. When you speak, your words carry weight. When you don't speak, your silence becomes a space that others feel invited to fill with their own truth. That is the mark of a man who does not try to control connection, but creates room for it to emerge organically. Women begin to engage differently with you. They ask questions not because you are evasive, but because your energy holds dimension. They want to understand what they're feeling, to trace the source of their intrigue. But you're not here to explain the mystery. You are here to be it. You do not offer every thought. You do not explain every choice. And that disciplined silence invites them into their own curiosity. You become the mirror they want to stand in front of longer, not because you offer answers, but because you evoke real questions. This is the silent language of the chosen one. You speak it now fluently, with your walk, with your eyes, with the way your energy enters a room before your name is known. There's no need to raise your voice because everything you are says what needs to be said. This kind of presence, this kind of restraint is magnetic, not in a way that pulls, but in a way that draws out. You are the chosen one. And the world now listens, not to what you say, but to what your presence teaches in the spaces where no words exist. You have become a man who commands not through noise, but through energetic fluency. And that, more than anything, is why they cannot stop watching. Chosen one, you are no longer just a man in the light. You are a man who holds both light and shadow, and neither consumes you. That is the true essence of your mystery. Not what you hide, but what you hold. You've stopped fearing your depths. You've made peace with the places others pretend not to have. You've walked through fire, not to destroy, but to understand. And now, your presence carries the scent of something real, something earned. This is the kind of man the world rarely knows how to receive because you are not one-dimensional. You don't live in performance, you live in presence. And that presence carries the fullness of you, the pain, the triumph, the stillness, the storms. You are no longer trying to be pure light. You are also not drowning in shadow. You are the integration of both. And that is what makes you unforgettable. Women feel this before they see it. There's a knowing in your energy, the sense that you've seen things, felt things that cannot be spoken about easily. They don't know your story, but they know your soul has depth. They know you've wrestled with yourself and returned with scars that glisten like gold under pressure. You're not afraid of emotion. You're not afraid of silence. You're not afraid to walk away when a space no longer honors your truth. That strength, that fusion of fire and stillness, is what casts the aura around you now. You reveal just enough to be known, but never everything. Not because you are hiding, but because you respect the sacred timing of disclosure. You don't hand your soul over to anyone just because they're curious. You allow others to earn access to your depths, not through seduction, but through authenticity. And in this balance between revealed light and protected shadow, you've become the kind of mystery that invites others to see the contrast in themselves.